Good evening, everyone. Would take your seats, please. We're going to begin the, what is the name of this meeting? No, just kidding. The Utility Safety and Environment Committee meeting for tonight, Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Excuse me. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the Utilities Committee meeting minutes of July 12th, 2023.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Oswald, second by Mrs. Simmons. Are there any questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the matter of a resolution to adopt the solid waste management plan for the Lorain County Solid Waste Management District. Ms. Zell, if you'd like to come to the mic, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Brandy Schnell, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Lorain County Solid Waste Management District that is located at 226 Middle Avenue here in Elyria. Thank you so much for having me. I have come to speak about the Lorain County Solid Waste Management Plan and the resolution that we are asking for to approve or ratify the plan. So just a couple of basics about it. Ohio House Bill 592 was passed in 1988, and it dramatically revised Ohio's outdated laws on solid waste management at the time, and it required that every county be part of a solid waste management district, either a single county or a multi-county district. We are a single county district, but we also include the entire city of Vermilion, even though part of Vermilion is in Erie County. More of their population resides on this side of the county line. So it's all of Lorain County, including all of the city of Vermilion. That's our solid waste district. And that bill emphasized the need to reduce Ohio's reliance on landfills for disposal of waste and increase solid waste reuse, recycling, and minimization efforts. One of the requirements is that the Solid Waste Management District create a plan for its residents for a planning period. Our planning period is 10 years, and each 10-year planning period, we need to make sure that we have enough space for the garbage that's produced by our residents. We need to make sure that we are implementing programs that aim at increasing our recycling rates and reducing our reliance on landfills. And the second goal, or another one of the goals, is for us to be able to provide 100% access to recycling, which we have done in this county, either through curbside or drop-off recycling facilities. So the plan that we are asking for a resolution for each community to ratify is going before all of the 34 political subdivisions in Lorain County, whether that's a township, a village, or a municipality, a city, to look over and approve. Now, the whole document is a little over 300 pages. So we have created an executive summary that you all should have a copy of in front of you. It was also mailed to the mayor's office and emailed as well. And that gives you the programs that we are currently participating in and leading the way on, including the Lorain County Collection Center, which is right here in the city of Elyria. And we're trying to meet all of these goals, and we're trying to increase recycling rates in the county. So the solid waste plan, it does that. It gives all of that information, and we have to go out for ratification whenever we update this plan, and that means that we need to have approval by 60% of the population of the county. And that must include the Lorraine County Commissioner's approval, our Lorraine County Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee's approval, and the largest city in the county's approval. So the city of Lorraine has to be part of that 60%. So we've already, the ratification period is August 1st to October 30th. So we would just like to ask that you please consider it, and if you have any questions, to please reach out, and we would love to have 100% approval in the county. Are there any questions about the plan?
Thank you, Ms. Snell. Are there any questions for Ms. Snell? Mrs. Simmons?
Oh, you didn't say it.
Oh, that's Mrs. Davis. I'm sorry, I just saw the hand in the...
Thank you, through you, Chair. My question is, have they talked to our safety service director or went over with them? Because we have a plant, I mean, we have a disposal ourselves with the company, so where we dump and so forth. So shouldn't you be talking to the director and then relaying it to us, or how's this going to work?
Sure. So Elyria, along with the city of Oberlin, are in a unique position where you have your own, you haul your own residential solid waste, and then you take that over to Republic Services, Lorraine County Landfill, directly. Some other communities in Lorraine County have direct contracts with Republic Services, and Republic Services comes out and services those residents. And then other communities are part of the Lorraine County Consortium, which is made up of several smaller townships and one city who collectively got together and bid their contract as one big unit to get the best pricing. And that 5 years ago is about to come up for a bid again here in a couple of months. But the last bid was awarded to Rumpke, so Rumpke is currently servicing those communities. And you're in a very unique situation because your safety service director is former Lorraine County Commissioner Matt Lundy, and he actually was previously a chairperson of the Lorraine County Solid Waste Policy Committee. So maybe more than any other service director in Lorraine County understands solid waste and solid waste planning and the policy committee, and has been through this process, this ratification process before.
Thank you. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair, because I think I'd like to hear from the Safety Service Director, and I think that we should be getting information then also from our sanitation department and find out if what we're doing right now with our collection is working, because I know that's been an issue right now. So maybe Mr. Lundy could, maybe fill us in a little bit more of what he knows about, what's going on with that. Thank you.
Mr. Lundy, before you respond, I have a question, I guess, that can be directed to you as well. I know that with recycling, if there's anything that shouldn't be in the recycling, it contaminates the whole load. Is that correct?
That's the problem we run into.
And so, how do we fix that?
Well,
Mr. Lundy.
And I guess, and thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the board here, to the committee. And I want to be very clear, I'm not suggesting this plan. I'm just pointing out, maybe Brandy can elaborate. And first, let me say, working with Brandy is just amazing. She does great work in the community, educating the community and the students, and gets called to duty to go out to these kind of meetings and let people know what's going on in the community as it relates to the solid waste management plan. And let me also give kudos to Director Blevins, who the Blevins family is well known here in Elyria. And the director cares deeply about the city of Elyria and how we do things. And so let me start with those notes. But yeah, having served over there before, a lot of those discussions, Madam Chair, were held over the years. And I guess there was an initiative, I believe, in Oberlin, right? Was it Oberlin where they collected the recycling bins and then you had to opt in? And then what happened was, I'm not proposing this, but let me make that very clear. I'm just telling you about when it comes to contamination of recyclable products or bins, that one initiative that was launched where they actually collected the recycling bins and then you opted in. So if you opted in, they knew that you were pretty serious about making sure you didn't have contaminated bins that went over to the landfill. And maybe Brandy, that's one point, maybe you want to elaborate on that.
I would be happy to. So the city of Oberlin did move to an opt-in program. They noticed that their recycling bins were heavily contaminated with items that should not go in there. And so they basically hit the reset button and they stopped recycling for a short period of time and then went back out to the residents and said, you know, if you would really like to recycle, please sign up. And it didn't cost them anything, but what it did was, the way that I look at it, if you take the whole, you have maybe 25% of the population who is absolutely going to go out and they're going to look for new information about recycling. They're going to stay up to date. They're going to make sure that they're doing everything correctly. They're washing everything out. They're doing it right. You've got the 25% on the other end who really just want an extra garbage can, and they're going to use that recycling bin as an extra garbage can, unfortunately. And then you've got the 50% in the middle who are recycling. They want to recycle correctly, but they're not sure. You know, if it was maybe right in front of them, they would do that. But they also do what we call wish cycling. Like, I'm not really sure if this is recyclable, but they'll figure it out, and they throw it in there, and then that still is a contamination, even if it wasn't mean-spirited in which they were putting it in there. And so we've got that 25%. We want to move that 50% over so that they're doing everything correctly. And we want to kind of say to that other 25%, look, if you want an extra garbage can, your contract will allow for you to get an extra garbage can. Please don't put those things in the recycling bin. And so this type of opt-in program, it kind of allowed for that. And the maybe a bigger, better point is that those who opted in, now the city has a database of direct communication with the residents who are recycling. They can say, you know, we're noticing an awful lot of food waste or an awful lot of plastic bags in our recycling bins. Remember, those can't go in there. And so now you're just giving that reminder to the people. You know, it's very targeted. So they did that there. A similar situation happened over in Cleveland, and they're having some positive results with that as well. So that's just one of the things that we've seen. Another thing that has delivered positive results for increasing recycling and decreasing contamination is like a boots on the ground campaign, which we also have performed one of these. We got a grant from the EPA, and we went around bin to bin, opening them and checking for contamination. And if we found things in there that shouldn't be, we would tag it with an oops, you made a mistake tag, and we would mark what they did wrong. So we were educating them at their bin and giving them an opportunity to fix it so that it could then be picked up without the contamination inside. So those kinds of programs we found have been very effective when you're kind of overrun with contamination. And unfortunately, like, Elyria has had some contamination problems. And your problems have been exacerbated by the fact that because you're taking your own trucks to the landfill, you're being charged a contamination fee right at the gate. Whereas another community, I don't want to pick on anyone specifically, but another community who has a contract directly with Republic, they're not checking those trucks. Those trucks are going into the recycling center, they're getting dumped, they're getting filtered through the system, and at the end, they're saying, this is how much was left over that was residual or contamination. And they're calculating for that, and that might affect their next contract, but they're not getting a heavy contamination fee at the gate the way that the city of Elyria and the city of Oberlin were.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam Chair. So if it's a 10-year plan, I'm assuming we're coming up on our 10th year, okay? Because we had to have a plan. Yeah, okay. So we're kind of renewing, okay. I don't know, because it's come up a lot of times in conversation about our recycling, and I don't know if we're doing a really good job at the recycling. The plan is that Maybe they're just all contaminated, so we're not recycling, but then, like you said, there's a few people, oh yeah, I've been recycling. They don't realize that, you know what, we just throw it all in there because nobody else does it. And we've come up with ideas, nobody's implemented that I know, certain plans, and it's one thing to come up with this great idea, but if they don't implement it and we don't do it, you know, we struggle because we're not getting the money that we used to with the recycling, you know, when people put it in there. So I guess I would like to see, before we did anything, I'd like to see more information on what we've been doing and what's working, what's not working, so that you know what the new plan is that you're looking at. And if it's the same thing, then what good is it? I mean, you know, we've tossed a lot of ideas around, and I don't know if anything's really working 100%. Thank you.
Mrs. Deary?
Through you, Madam Chair, and Mrs. Schnell, thank you very much. To Mr. Oswald's point, Mr. Schnell, please correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but I believe what Lorraine County Solid Waste District is doing with their plan update is the district is kind of at a high level umbrella, overseeing everything. So it's not our sanitation situation versus Oberlin's versus Lorraine's. A big piece of what they do is education to all of the townships, municipalities, villages, what have you, within the district. And they certainly do that, and they have grants for that. And I know they certainly can help with, you know, perhaps trying to get our recycling back on track here within the city of Elyria. But I know one of the other things that they do as far as the recycling end is the center, that we're very fortunate. I'm speaking as a resident, not so much as the law director here on South Abbey Road. And that's one thing that I would highly encourage everyone to take advantage of, because, I mean, I don't want to say they take everything, but they take like 99% of everything. And honestly, I don't know where those things were going before that place was open. I don't think I want to know. Because, I mean, everything from tires to crusty paint to junk computers, I mean, they have shredding capabilities there. I know that the city does shred days periodically throughout the year, but I mean, they'll do that every day they're open. And it's you know, confidential, and people can get their private documents shredded right there. And that's recycling and reuse in its own way. And people can get that junk out of their house, literally. So I think that that's just something I'd like to make sure that the committee keeps in mind, that yes, the district, you know, does assist cities, including ours, with our sanitation program, but this is something that's much more than that, as you know, as well. They're also in charge of Lorraine County Beautiful Day, of coordinating all of that, which many of us have been involved in, and that the city participates in. So I just, you know, wanted to kind of, you know, let you know that as well, Mr. Oswald.
Thank you, Mrs. Deary. Ms. Davis, is your hand up?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
Madam Chair, through you. You know, it sounds like a good program, and I see that our city, we have a lack of educating the people about the recycle, and I would love for us to be involved, but also that I think that our superintendents, we need to hear from them about our recycle, where we at, where we stand, and, you know, what we need to do even to work with this program.
Thank
So
you,
we
Ms.
need their involvement, please.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I know at one time, and this was maybe a few years ago, we talked about putting like a newsletter in the water bills that talked about recycling, what you could recycle and what you couldn't recycle. I don't know if that ever got off the ground. I don't think it did, but I know that was a conversation that we had. I know part of the problem, like Ms. Schnell said, is that people put things in and not meaning to contaminate the load, just not knowing. They don't have that information. And like she said, we get charged at the gate. So if we could figure out a way what that is, I don't know. If we could figure out a way to educate people so that we're not having so much contamination, maybe that would bring the cost of the program down. That's just my thought. Mr. Lundy?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I just wanted to add that, you know, I think the other communities in the county should be thankful that Elyria and Oberlin are in the business. I think that forces them to be a lot more competitive when it comes time to do the negotiations with their communities. And I can't say enough good things about our sanitation department. Extremely dedicated staff over there, and they work very hard. But I know it's very frustrating for them when they see these bins that are filled with things that they know aren't recyclables. And as I said, I'm not proposing that we go to the opt-in program. I would say that maybe it's something that council may want to take a look at, maybe next year, and say maybe this is an approach we should try, because there's some logistics involved there with rounding up all the bins and then deciding who wants to opt in. And but you certainly get a higher recyclable rate of pure product, I guess you could say, if you use that initiative. So, yeah, I just wanted to make the point that other communities should be thankful that Elyria is in the business and Oberlin's in the business. It helps them out. And as far as paint recycling, as the law director brought up, we had a situation recently. The gentleman called. He was very perturbed because we weren't picking up his paint cans that he put out. And it's like, well, take them to the recycling center. And so, and as the law director has pointed out, that recycling center is among, I'd clearly say, I'm not a commissioner anymore, but I think really the best in Ohio. It's amazing how everything operates over there and what you take. The challenge they run into all the time is being able to turn around and then find somebody who's willing to take those recyclables, and the margins get smaller and smaller. So there's issues there, and sometimes you end up even paying more probably for people to take some of the products. So that gets to be a little frustrating. If I could just add that, the frustration overall with the solid waste program, the solid waste department over there, is that a poorly negotiated contract with Republic Services by the previous administrator, Tom Williams, basically pretty much giving away the store. That has led to fewer dollars for grants. That's also resulted in the environmental enforcement unit that has been brought up here numerous times during council meetings. Maybe we'll call the environmental enforcement unit to look into something. They're not there anymore because that money's not there. Sadly, the program is hobbling along as a result of a extremely poorly negotiated contract by former Administrator Tom Williams. So, but the staff there is highly dedicated. Director Blevins pulls a rabbit out of the hat every day, I think, to find a way to make things work. Brandy's out in the community doing amazing community education awareness programming. And so it is a solid department, but they are doing everything they can just to get through. And the recycling effort is just so frustrating because I remember one time I was getting a haircut, and the lady cutting my hair said, well, I didn't know what to do with it, so I put it in the recycling bin. And I'm like, what are you talking about right now? So, that's what happens. But yeah, if we're going to do it, we got to do it right.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam Chair. So from what you just mentioned about putting something in our water bills, is this the education and stuff that you're talking about,
Yes.
these type of things?
Yes.
So, okay, so I had a little bit different, but that's the help that they're going to give us in this plan so that we can, is that correct?
I wasn't inferring that they were going to help us. This would be something that the city
No,
would
but they're
be doing.
giving us ideas
Yes,
and
of
ways
course.
that we can educate.
Yes,
Okay.
correct, Randy?
So one thing that I was thinking about, thank you, Madam Chairman. So one of the things that I was thinking of was a way that would be helpful. So obviously we've talked about the opt-in program, which has shown success in other places where contamination was very high and they needed to do something pretty drastic and immediate, and that did work. Another thing would be to put labels directly on your bins, every single bin, because if you're going to that bin and you're looking at it, and then you shouldn't have as many questions about whether or not that item can go in that bin if you're looking at a sticker directly in front of you. So that's another way in which you could help that wish cycling, I'm not sure, problem. Utility bills are a great way to educate, because those go to all the households, and I personally, as the community outreach coordinator, will go to any council meeting, senior center. I go to schools all across the county. I talk to students, I talk to adult groups, I talk to senior groups. I've been to Rotary. I go to these places and I will educate, and then hopefully those people will then also educate further. The Lorain County Collections Center, as the Safety Service Director mentioned, it's a national award-winning center. We received an award a number of years ago from the Solid Waste Association of North America. And definitely in the state, we're operational 3 days a week, year-round, with our own staff. You just don't find that in other counties. So we have the ability to take those things. If someone lives in an apartment building and they don't have access to the curbside recycling, they can bring their household recyclables to the collection center to be recycled. Another couple points that the Safety Service Director made. Our Lorain County Collection Center coordinator, Thomas Patrick III, he's here as well. He runs a pretty tight ship over there. We have some contracts that we go out to bid for, and that's who gets our latex paint gets recycled into new latex paint. Other things that can't be recycled, like stains and things that are really old that have been in garages for a really long time and we're not really sure what they are, those kinds of things, they come in and those go to another contract who will dispose of them properly. So scrap tires, we pay, I will be very clear, we pay to recycle and dispose of properly much more than the very small amount of dollars that comes back in for what we call commodities, which would be our paper shred or our cardboard. We do get some money back for those things. It absolutely does not offset the costs of what we pay out. And also, as the law director mentioned, this is the planning document for the whole county. The budget we look at every single year. Our programs we go through, we do an annual report every year to go over them. This document is required by the Ohio Revised Code. And I will say that the Ohio EPA, they got the first look at this plan to make sure that we didn't have any key deficiencies, that we didn't have any glaring problems, that we met all of our goals before we sent it out to our communities. And the EPA came back and said that we have a very well-written plan, and that we are meeting and exceeding goals higher than what they require. And the alternative, and we've seen it happen in other counties, is if a plan is unable to be ratified by that district, the EPA unfortunately comes in and writes the plan for that district. And that can get a little dicey because they're not always looking at what's best for the people in that, community. So we want to hear what everyone has to say. We want to implement those programs. Education is huge, very top of the list. So any ways in which we can meet with Safety Service Director, sanitation, council members, and come up with ways, we just talked about several here, that we can help improve education of recycling and recycling numbers. We want to meet, and we want to do that, and obviously also make sure that we have the space available for our residents for their waste, because we get recycling, we want high recycling numbers, but there's always going to be waste, and we always have to make sure that we're managing where that solid waste is going to go for a 10-year period. And the same is true of our budget, which is why we had to make some of those really tough budget decisions that Safety Service Director Lundy mentioned, and that comes from several points. Our host community agreement being lowered, and then also if Republic Services loses contracts, that affects the amount of money that the tier fees that the solid waste district gets to operate our programs. And solid waste districts who do not have a landfill, so we have a landfill, that's how we are funded through tier fees at that landfill, they have to charge generation fees. So every resident of that county who generates garbage is being charged a fee. We don't have to do that here because of how we are set up, number one, but number two, in order to not have had to do that now with this solid waste plan, we had to make some very big cuts. And that's why some of those things had to go, so that we could keep other things afloat.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. Are there any further questions? Do we have a resolution, Colleen? Seeing no further questions, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the ratification of the Lorain County Solid Waste Management District Solid Waste Management Plan, and this is an ordinance or resolution to authorize the ratification of the Lorain County Solid Waste Management Plan per required by law. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Are there any other questions or comments? Can someone call for the question?
Question.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Snell. Thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda is the matter of the purchase of 2 vehicles for the fire department. Director Lundy, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fire department is in need of replacing 2 vehicles. These are pickup trucks will be used by the fire department. Obviously, as everybody knows, you experience supply chain issues, trying to find availability of equipment. Joe Strozak, I laugh sometimes because I think he's got an amazing radar, or he's one of the luckiest guys in the world. We may want to take him to Vegas with us. He has a way of finding things that we can't find through some of the normal channels. But so Joe was able to come across really the 2 vehicles that we are in need of, and luckily they're right here in Elyria, at Elyria Ford. One of the vehicles is an F-150. And the other vehicle is just a slight grade up. That's an F-250. Madam Chair, I understand that in our earlier process here in the year when we were negotiating the budget and issue 6 funds were set aside for the purchase of these vehicles, I think we actually budgeted about $130,000. These 2 vehicles would come in at $114,649.
Thank you, Director Lundy. Are there any questions for Director Lundy on the fire truck? On the pickup trucks, Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair. So are they just adding 2 more and they're not getting rid of anything?
Yeah, I've been told to date that they're going to keep the other, they're still using the, not using, but they're going to keep the other 2 vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair. So do they really need these 2 vehicles? We just ordered $1 million truck, so do they actually need these 2 if they can keep the other 2 in operation? And then how old are the other 2?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of that.
What's the age of the other 2 vehicles?
I don't know the age of the other 2 vehicles, and I don't think that, Joe Strozak manages our fleet, and I will tell you, Joe's real conscientious about whether he thinks something needs to take place or not take place. And so this is largely, I guess, based on Joe's recommendation, having reviewed the request. And so the only answer I can give you tonight is they've made the request. I know that Joe has reviewed it. I think if Joe felt that it was an unreasonable request, I think he would have, I know he would have said they don't need it. So.
I think it's important to note, as Director Lundy said, these have already been approved in the budget. Mhm. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the purchase of one Ford F-150 truck and one F-250 truck for the Elyria Fire Department from Elyria Ford. And this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to purchase the said vehicles. The F-150 is $56,785, and the F-250 is $60,685, approved in the budget, not to exceed the total amount, not to exceed the total cost of $118,000. Emergency clauses requested due to supply chain issues. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second.
I'm sorry
I'm
to
sorry.
interrupt, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure that you were quoting the right numbers. You cited numbers for each one of the vehicles?
Yes, sir. As per what's in the referral and on the committee report, the F-150 is $56,785,
Okay.
and the F-250 is $60,685. Does that sound right to you, sir?
Well, the amount I'm showing here for the balance due is $57,864.95 instead of the 60.
Well,
But-
through you, Madam Chair, for purposes of the legislation, we do typically round up around numbers,
Oh,
but
that's
to a
fine.
not to exceed.
That's
So it's a
fine.
not to exceed that I've listed is 118,000.
That's fine.
I will note that the quotes from Nick Abraham, and perhaps they're, due to the fact that these are on the lot, I don't know if, I don't know what Mr. Storzak typically does. I can tell you the one is showing 56,785, and the other one is showing 60,685. These were as of July 7th, so I don't know if something's transpired since then, but
Well, can I explain that, Madam Chair?
Please.
Through you. The unfortunate thing that happened was the F-250 was lost. In other words, it ended up being dealt elsewhere. I don't know if that was in the inventory or bookkeeping process. However, another F-250 did come in, and that F-250, and I'm holding the quote here dated, well, actually, this one's dated August 8th, so this absolutely the latest quote, is $57,864.95. I know we were disappointed in somehow, through the record keeping, the other vehicle was released. They've been good about holding the vehicles for us while we go through the process of councilmatic action.
Law Director Deary.
and, through you, Madam Chair, just to the committee, hence the reason that we do a not to exceed
Gotcha.
instead of the specific amount. Again, it's obviously it's up to the committee, but my recommendation would be that should you approve this, that it would be a total cost for both vehicles not to exceed $118,000.
Mr. Oswald. Thank you, Law
Through you,
Director.
Madam Chair. So that's the cost of the vehicle, and that's in our budget, but how do we do with the budget when you have to detail them and put all the goodies in them? Is that all calculated into the budget, or
Mr. Lundy.
Yeah, the answer I can give you on that one is that these are purely for the vehicles, and so this is not outfitting the vehicles with the decals, or they would be installing radios, obviously, that would be installed, but, we just recently went through councilmatic action for radios to be purchased that would go in the different vehicles. I don't have a clue what the decaling costs, but no, this is just for the purchase of the vehicles, but we've got one that is race red, and those drive faster than the other one, and the other one is just your red. So at least we got the red in order.
And Mr. Lundy, I'm sure our signs department can put the Elyria Fire Department on the doors or whatever, correct? Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Call for the question.
question?
Oh, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item, on the agenda is the matter of the Penfield Avenue Storm Sewer Improvement Project. Engineer McKillop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. The referral is requesting authorization for the mayor to advertise and award a contract for storm sewer improvements on Penfield from Foster Ave to Lowell Street. The estimated construction budget is $500,000, and this project is utilizing community development block grant funds in the amount of $250,750. The remaining $249,250 will come out of our stormwater utility funds. This block is, we're calling it Phase 2. Beginning of last year, 2022, we did install storm sewers on Penfield between Foster and Oakwood. So this is continuing that process. The storm sewers will be installed, and each property will receive a yard drain in the front yard because the street currently does not have curbs. So there'll be swales in the front yards. And they'll have a lateral to connect, whether it's their downspouts or backyard drain. So it's an overall improvement for the drainage in that area.
Thank you, Mrs. McKillop. I know that on Penfield and a lot of the West Park area, they just literally had a ditch. They didn't have storm sewers at all. They just had a ditch. So they're getting storm sewers, and I think that's a very good thing. Are there any questions for Mrs. McKillop? Mrs. McKillop, will this be an emergency?
Yes, if we could, please.
Are there any questions for Mrs. McKillop? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the Penfield Avenue storm sewer improvements, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for and accept a contract for the said sewer project. Funds included in budget, CDBG funds and stormwater funds. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Are there any other questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And last but not least is the matter of the professional services for design and inspection services for the Murray Ridge Water Tower Improvement Project. Mrs. McKillop.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. We're looking for authorization to enter into an agreement with Burgess and Nyepel for design services to prepare plans for improvements at the Murray Ridge Water Tower. Also, the agreement will include construction inspection services after we go out to bid and get a contractor to look at repainting the outside and the inside of the towers, perform any safety upgrades, and install water quality improvements inside the tank. And we do request this being passed as an emergency.
Thank you. Where exactly is it located?
Murray Ridge, it's
Oh, I know where Murray Ridge is. I meant the water tower.
it's on the south end. Trying to think.
I can't picture it in my mind's eye.
I want to say, is it 7,900? Or it's not that far from infirmary.
From infirmary. If I've seen it, I just didn't know that I saw it. Thank you. Any questions? Mrs. Davis, you have a question?
But my question was, where is it located on
It should-
Murray? It's not too far from,
Infirmary.
it has to be back by.
Oh, it's by the jail.
Yeah,
It's by the jail.
It's on the west side of the road.
Yep. Now I know where it is. It's by the jail. Thank you. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I know last couple of years, we just did Clark Street, Water Tower, we've done Bell. How many towers do we have that are coming up? how many towers do we have in the city?
Mhm.
6?
And are we getting knocked down to the point where we got most of these taken care of?
We still have we have this one, this is the next one, and I know there's 1 or 2 more that we definitely want to do some work in the next few years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the Murray Ridge Water Tower Improvement Project, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Burgess and Nyepel for plans and specifications for the said project. Funds are included in the 2023 budget and not to exceed $82,000 from the Water Miscellaneous Fund. Emergency clause is requested. And I read on the referral that suspension of rules, does that need to be on the?
No, just the emergency.
Okay, just the emergency. Okay, just the emergency. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Simmons, second by Mr. Oswald. Are there any other questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There are no other agenda items to come before this committee. I will entertain a motion for adjournment, please.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming.